Chapter 1. Born of Chaos. The Rise of Olympus. In the beginning, the world was raw and formless, chaos stretching endlessly, without sky or sea, light or land. But from this shapeless void emerged Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, entwined in creation. From their union came the Titans, primal forces of nature, among them Cronus, who overthrew his father to reign. But the cycle of power would not stop there. Cronus, gripped by paranoia and prophecy, swallowed his own children whole, fearing their vengeance. One child, however, was hidden, spirited away by his mother, Rhea, and raised in secret upon the sacred slopes of Crete. His name was Zeus. As he matured, Zeus became more than a god. He became a storm in waiting, a divine force forged in exile. With cunning and courage, he freed his siblings from Cronus's belly and sparked a cosmic war, the Titanomachy. This was the birth of Olympus. The world would never be the same again. Chapter 2. The War of the Titans. The storm had been gathering for eons. When Zeus came of age, he did not quietly accept the tyranny of the old gods. Instead, he challenged it, rising from secrecy to rebellion. Armed with cunning and the fire of divine purpose, he freed his brothers and sisters from Cronus's stomach with a potion crafted by the wise Métis. One by one, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia emerged from the darkness of their father's gut, reborn as Olympians. But Cronus would not fall without a fight. What followed was cataclysm, a war unlike any before or since. Titans clashed with gods atop mountain peaks. The skies were riven with lightning and oceans churned with fury. For 10 years the battle raged. The earth itself trembled beneath the fury of divine warfare. On the side of the Olympians, Zeus gathered powerful allies. From the depths of Tartarus, he freed the Hecatoncheires, 100-handed giants whose strength shattered mountains, and the Cyclopes, who forged for Zeus his greatest weapon, the thunderbolt. It was with these bolts, blinding and divine, that Zeus turned the tide. One by one, the Titans fell, and Cronus himself was cast into the abyss, locked away beneath the earth in the pit of Tartarus. From the smoke and silence of that battle, Olympus rose, not just as a mountain, but as the throne of a new world order. Chapter 3. Forging Olympus. With the Titans defeated and Cronus cast into the depths of Tartarus, the world exhaled. From the scorched earth of battle, a new order began to form, not only in power, but in structure. The Olympians, once hidden, emerged as the new celestial architects of existence. And, at the summit of the highest mountain in Greece, Zeus chose his throne. Mount Olympus became more than a mountain. It was a realm of divine governance, unreachable by mortal hands and cloaked in swirling clouds and radiant light. Here, Zeus forged the new laws of the cosmos. He divided the world among his brothers. Poseidon received the oceans, Hades the underworld, and Zeus took the heavens and the sky. Olympus was shaped not only by raw power, but by the ideals of balance, order, and hierarchy. Palaces of light and marble rose upon its peaks, temples of wisdom and revelry, judgment and beauty. The 12 Olympians each took their place in Zeus's court, representing the many facets of the cosmos and the human spirit. Zeus, seated at the center, became not merely a ruler, but the embodiment of divine authority. His thunderbolts were no longer just weapons. They were declarations of law, protection, and punishment. The age of chaos had ended. The era of Olympian harmony had begun. Chapter 4. The Lightning King and the Laws of the Sky. Zeus was not a ruler content to simply hold power. He shaped it, tempered it, and made it visible in the skies above. The thunderbolt, once a raw force of destruction, became a symbol of his will, sudden, divine, and absolute. With it, he was more than a king. He was a judge, a guardian, and a reminder to all that the heavens themselves had a mind. He governed with order, but not without fear. Mortals and immortals alike knew the consequences of arrogance and defiance. Yet Zeus was also a protector of oaths, a punisher of perjury, and a patron of justice. His reach extended beyond Olympus, into the affairs of kings, cities, and men. In storms, people saw his fury. In clear skies, his favor. Laws and customs were shaped under his watchful eye, not written in books, but carved into the fabric of nature. The rain he summoned nourished crops. The thunder warned of reckoning. Though feared, he was also beloved. His presence meant structure in a world that once had none. And when mortals lifted their eyes to the heavens, they saw not just clouds or constellations, but the steady hand of Zeus, the lightning king who gave the sky its law. Chapter 5. Lovers and Lineage. Zeus, the consort and creator. Zeus was a god of law, sky, and thunder. But he was also a god of desire, passion, and legacy. His love stories wove through time like constellations across the heavens, each one giving rise to new gods, demigods, and dynasties. To mortals and immortals alike, Zeus appeared in many forms: swan, bull, golden rain, or eagle. His lovers were goddesses, nymphs, and human women. And from these unions came some of the most legendary figures of Greek myth. From Leda came Helen of Troy. From Danae, the hero Perseus. From Semele, Dionysus, the god of wine. From Alcmene, Heracles the mighty. These liaisons were not always born of harmony. Many were tangled in deceit, divine transformation, or tragic ends. Yet each bore a child of significance, shaping not only Olympus, but the mortal world. In his wife Hera, Zeus found both queen and rival, her jealous wrath a constant shadow over his passions. His children embodied aspects of Zeus himself: power, wisdom, beauty, war. Athena burst fully formed from his head. Apollo carried his radiant force, Artemis his wild nature. Through these offspring, Zeus did not merely rule. He extended himself into the very narrative of civilization. He was not just the father of gods. He was the architect of mythic bloodlines. Chapter 6. Hera, Queen, Rival, and Mirror. If Zeus ruled the skies with thunder, Hera ruled the halls of Olympus with silence, storm, and unspoken power. She was not merely his consort. She was his equal in pride, unmatched in wrath, and unmatched in dignity. To understand Zeus, one must understand Hera, his partner, his rival, and, in many ways, his reflection. Hera was the goddess of marriage, of queenship, of sacred bonds. Yet irony clung to her domain, for her own union with Zeus was fraught with betrayal. His endless affairs were daggers to her heart, and though immortal, her pain echoed through the myths like thunder from a distant storm. But Hera was no victim. She was calculating, poised, and often terrifying. Her vengeance was divine and patient, meted out not only to Zeus's lovers, but to their children and descendants. Her wrath pursued Heracles across 12 impossible labors. Her disdain tested Semele, Leto, and countless others. Yet beneath the fury was an unyielding sense of justice. Hera represented cosmic balance. Where Zeus expanded, Hera imposed structure. Where Zeus created, Hera protected. She did not challenge his rule to destroy it. She tempered it, sharpened it, forced it to account for itself. In every act of divine anger or silent pride, Hera reminded Olympus that even kings need a queen, not as a subordinate, but as a mirror. Chapter 7. The Trials of Prometheus. To challenge Zeus was to challenge the cosmic order, and no immortal did so more defiantly than Prometheus. Prometheus, the fire-bringer, the forward thinker, had once sided with Zeus during the Titanomachy. But loyalty is fragile when power is absolute. Prometheus believed in humankind. He shaped them from clay, pitied their fragility, and sought to elevate them beyond their place. So he stole fire from Olympus, a gift meant only for gods, and gave it to mortals. Fire was more than flame. It was knowledge, power, agency, civilization, and with it, Zeus saw something he could not abide: disobedience, autonomy, a future he could not fully control. For this transgression, Zeus did not kill Prometheus. He made him eternal. Prometheus was bound to a jagged mountain in the far reaches of the world. Each day, an eagle descended to feast on his liver. Each night, the wound healed. The cycle was endless, a punishment forged not just in pain, but in time. A god punished by a god, for the sake of man. This act revealed a deeper truth. Zeus did not fear rebellion. He feared the awakening of mortals. He ruled the skies, but Prometheus had touched the flame of destiny. And from that fire, myths of resistance would one day be born. Chapter 8. Wrath from Above. Punishment and Prophecy. Though Zeus was often portrayed as just and wise, his reign was not without terror. His wrath, like the storms he wielded, could come swiftly and without mercy, particularly when mortals dared to rise above their place or challenge divine will. He destroyed entire civilizations with bolts of fire and flood. When King Salmoneus dared imitate Zeus by dragging bronze chariots to mimic thunder, Zeus struck him down in a single blast. When Lycaon served him human flesh as a test of omniscience, Zeus raised his house with fire and cursed him into a beast. But divine punishment was never random. It was a warning, a spectacle of cosmic justice. Prophecy played a key role in how Zeus exerted control. He feared not just rebellion in the present, but threats whispered through time. He swallowed Metis, goddess of wisdom, because it was foretold that her child would overthrow him. Athena was born from his skull instead, armor-clad and loyal, yet always a reminder of the fate he narrowly avoided. Zeus's power, then, was not just physical, it was psychological. He punished transgressors and manipulated fate itself, making oracles and omens serve as subtle instruments of control. Mortals prayed to him for guidance, but always with reverent fear. In the skies above, thunder could mean rain or retribution. Chapter 9. Athena, the daughter born of thought. No birth in myth is as strange or as symbolic as that of Athena. Zeus, ever wary of fate, had swallowed his first wife, Metis, after hearing a prophecy. Her child would surpass its father. But wisdom cannot be contained forever. Within him, Metis continued to live, and from her intellect was forged a new being, not of the womb, but of the mind. One day, Zeus was struck by unbearable pain in his head. With a cry that echoed through Olympus, he summoned Hephaestus to cleave open his skull. From the wound sprang Athena, fully grown, clad in armor, bearing a spear and shield, her eyes glowing with clarity. She was the embodiment of strategic war, but also of wisdom, civilization, and craft. Where Ares charged with rage, Athena planned with purpose. She brought knowledge to humankind: navigation, law, weaving, architecture. Cities built temples not just to Zeus, but to her, the thinker born of thunder. And yet, she was fiercely loyal to her father. Unlike many of Zeus's children, she never challenged his authority. She was a mirror of his mind, a daughter of resolve, restraint, and reason. Together they symbolized the balance of power and intelligence, storm and strategy. In Athena, the sky god's thoughts took form, and from thought, civilization rose. Chapter 10. The Eagle and the Oak. Symbols of Zeus's power. Long before written myths and marble temples, Zeus was known by the signs he left in the natural world. Unlike the distant deities of other lands, he revealed himself through living symbols, forces that soared, endured, and struck awe into the hearts of mortals. The eagle was his messenger, his hunter, his eye from the sky. With wings wide as thunderheads, the sacred eagle represented divine sight, swift judgment, and the force of will descending from above. It was the bird that devoured Prometheus's liver, and the bird that hovered above battlefields and altars alike. Wherever an eagle flew, mortals bowed. They knew it was Zeus, watching. The oak was his root, his voice upon the earth. At Dodona, the oldest oracle in Greece, his will was whispered through the rustling of oak leaves. Priests listened not to scrolls, but to nature, the creak of wood, the flutter of wind. The tree stood as a living monument to Zeus's presence, older than shrines, untouched by flame or blade. Together, eagle and oak embodied the dual nature of Zeus, the high and the deep, the sudden strike and the slow root, the storm that sees and the tree that endures. In them, his spirit never needed a statue. It was always there, in sky and grove. Chapter 11. Zeus and the Trojan War. Fate, Favor, and Fire. The Trojan War was not merely a clash of armies. It was a battlefield of gods, where divine will danced with mortal ambition. And at the heart of that storm stood Zeus. Though he claimed impartiality, watching from his throne above, Zeus's hand was never truly absent. He allowed the war to unfold as fate had written, yet his subtle favor shifted the tide like wind across a burning plain. He was the grand orchestrator, never stepping fully into the arena, but always tilting the scales. It was at a wedding feast that it began. Zeus declined to invite Eris, goddess of discord. In retaliation, she cast the golden apple to the fairest. What followed was divine rivalry, a beauty contest, and the judgment of Paris. Each goddess, Hera, Athena, Aphrodite, offered bribes. Paris chose Aphrodite's promise of Helen, queen of Sparta. And so, war bloomed from vanity, vengeance, and prophecy. Zeus, though often aloof, permitted the war to burn on, perhaps as punishment, perhaps as catharsis. He watched as Hector fell, as Achilles raged, as Troy cracked beneath 1,000 flames. Each moment was a ripple in a larger pattern, one that only Zeus could see whole. When the city finally fell, it was not just a loss for mortals, it was a turning point in myth. An old world died in fire and song, and through it all, Zeus watched, not as a savior, but as a keeper of fate's momentum. Chapter 12. The Mortal Blood of Zeus, Demigods and Heroes. The blood of Zeus did not remain confined to Olympus. It spilled into the mortal world, not as war or wrath, but as lineage. From his unions with mortal women came children of immense power and tragic fate, the demigods. They walked the boundary between man and myth, heroes whose lives were shaped by divine ancestry and mortal struggle. To be a child of Zeus was both a gift and a burden. It came with strength beyond human measure, but also with destinies drenched in sorrow. Heracles, born of Alcmene, bore the raw might of Olympus, yet spent a lifetime atoning for a madness inflicted by Hera. His 12 labors were not just feats of strength. They were penance, purification, and a path to eventual godhood. Perseus, son of Danae, slew Medusa with divine tools and the blessing of gods, navigating riddles of fate to rescue Andromeda and found bloodlines of kings. Helen of Troy, daughter of Zeus and Leda, was not a warrior, but a symbol. Her beauty launched 1,000 ships, and her name echoed across empires. She was the flame that lit the Trojan War, the spark of divine chaos made mortal. Each demigod carried fragments of Zeus's essence into the world, wielding his power, facing his enemies, and enduring his contradictions. Through them, Zeus's legacy became more than myth. It became history. These were not just his children. They were echoes of Olympus in human form. Chapter 13. Zeus and the Cycle of Rebellion. Even for a god as powerful as Zeus, rebellion was not a threat that ended with victory. It was a cycle, eternal as the seasons, seated in the very nature of rule. For just as he overthrew Cronus, and Cronus overthrew Uranus, Zeus too lived beneath the shadow of prophecy. He knew well the weight of succession. The mythic cycle warned him, one day, his own child might rise to surpass him. That fear shaped his choices, swallowing Metis, watching his children, suppressing knowledge that might empower others. And still, rebellion echoed through Olympus. His own wife, Hera, conspired with Poseidon, Athena, and Apollo to overthrow him. They nearly succeeded, binding him in enchanted chains, until Thetis, the sea nymph, summoned Briareus, the hundred-handed one, to free him. Zeus forgave them, but his mercy was as cold as thunderclouds. Mortals too rebelled. When they built the Tower of Babel-like constructs to reach the heavens, or dared to rival divine wisdom, Zeus reminded them of the limits of human ambition. Floods, fire, thunder. These were not just punishments. They were reminders of the divine order. But perhaps the greatest rebellion was the subtle one. The human mind expanding, the soul questioning. The stories themselves, told and retold, hinted at a deeper truth. No king reigns forever, not even a god. Zeus may have ruled Olympus, but time and myth belong to no one. They are always watching the horizon, waiting for the next lightning to strike, in reverse. Chapter 14. Temples, Oracles, and the Worship of Zeus. Long after the thunder faded and the myths settled into memory, Zeus lived on, not just in story, but in stone. Across the ancient world, mortals raised temples in his honor. They carved his image into marble, crowned his statues with laurels, and built sanctuaries so vast that merely standing within them evoked the divine. The most magnificent was the Temple of Zeus at Olympia, home to one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. A statue so immense and radiant, it was said to stir awe in all who saw it. Crafted by Phidias, the god sat enthroned in gold and ivory, a lightning bolt in one hand, a figure of Nike, victory, in the other. Worship of Zeus was not just visual, it was spoken, felt, and interpreted. At Dodona, one of the oldest oracles, his voice whispered through the rustling of oak leaves. Priests and priestesses listened to the trees, to the flight of birds, to dreams and tremors. No flame, no scroll, just the breath of nature itself. At Olympia, the gods were honored through the Olympic Games. The contests of strength, speed, and willpower were tributes to Zeus's favor. Rituals not just of worship, but of embodiment. To strive was to please him. To win was to echo his might. Even as belief shifted and new gods rose, the name of Zeus echoed in poetry, in ritual, in skyward glances during storms. He was more than a myth. He was a presence, stitched into the ritual life of a people. In every oath sworn, in every temple column, his spirit lingered. Chapter 15. Echoes of Olympus, the enduring archetype of Zeus. Even as the marble temples crumbled and the old gods faded into myth, Zeus remained, not in presence, but in pattern. He became something more enduring than belief, an archetype. The image of the thunder-wielding Sky Father would echo across time and culture, from Jupiter of the Romans to Odin of the Norse, from kings in crowns to judges with gavels. Zeus became the symbol of supreme authority, of order from chaos, of divine justice wrapped in awe. Artists, poets, and philosophers reimagined him not only as a deity, but as an idea, the embodiment of patriarchal power, of celestial reason, of law that stood above men. To some, he was benevolent. To others, tyrannical. Always, he was central, his mythic traits scattered like stars across the sky of human culture. The lightning bolt became a symbol of sudden insight and wrath. The eagle, of vigilance and divine witness. The throne, of legitimacy. Even today, when thunder rolls or eagles soar, there's an ancient whisper behind the sound. But perhaps Zeus endures not because we still believe in him, but because we still feel the world needs what he once stood for: protection, judgment, structure, power tempered, at least occasionally, by wisdom. Olympus may be empty, but its echo still shakes the clouds.